Well, Jo Swinson, thank you very much for finding some time for us this morning. I wanted to talk about some of the elements of shared parental leave and flexible working which are on the agenda at the moment. So I guess the first question is, why now?
Well, delighted to be here and discussing this with you and the watchers, viewers of Reward magazine. This is something which actually I think is overdue. I mean, arguably this could have been done 10 years ago, but we are in the 21st century. Families are in all different shapes and sizes, and bringing a child into this world is something which is difficult enough and has enough challenges without the state getting in the way and saying this is the way you have to divide up the caring responsibilities. So this is about actually giving that choice back to parents and saying it's up to you, whatever works for you is something which will be accommodated, rather than an outdated assumption that says it has to be the mother who is at home and as the primary carer and dad's going out to work to be the breadwinner. That's not true of all families anymore, and so I think this additional flexibility will be something that will be welcomed by parents. And there'll be some cases where fathers want to be very, very involved and are perhaps, for whatever circumstances, the primary carer, and there'll be other circumstances where the mother might still be taking the lion's share of the time off, but dads will enjoy having the flexibility to have a little bit more time in those really vital early weeks where we know that parental involvement from fathers makes a really significant difference to the future outcomes for that child.
And in terms of sort of flexible working specifically, it hasn't been sort of universally welcomed. There have been organisations like the Forum of Private Business that have raised some issues around it. How will you overcome those?
Well, flexible working is something where there's already been the rights request for large numbers of employees, and that has generally been seen as something that's been very positive, because businesses that embrace flexible working find there are significant benefits, from reduced staff turnover to increased motivation and productivity and reduced costs through recruitment and so on. So that's something where we want more businesses to reap the benefit, and also to make it simpler, because at the moment there's a very rigid process in place for processing a request for flexible working. We're replacing that with a very simple, straightforward 2-page piece of guidance from ACAS that will mean that everybody is very clear about how this request should be dealt with. Of course, not every request can be granted, and that's absolutely understood. It's not always going to be right for the business, and therefore that right remains with employers where there's a sound business reason for turning a request down. But we know that already about 80% of requests are granted at the moment, and so I think that shows that there is a lot of scope for working more flexibly, and that brings benefits not just for the employees but also for the employers.
Sure, and I mean, given that we've got that sort of 80% acceptance at the moment, and realistically there are just some jobs that simply aren't relevant for flexible working, I mean, do we need legislation around this?
Well, it is very light touch legislation because it's about the right to request. So I think what that does is it helps to act as a catalyst to change that culture within organisations. But of course many organisations are already embracing this anyway. So I think we do need it, because there will be a few who otherwise would not be so keen to adopt these practices. And it is important that employees have the ability to have these discussions and where it makes sense to be able to have more flexible work. Because of course if we're going to get the economy back on track and really thrive as the UK PLC, then we do need to make sure we're using the talents of everyone in the workplace, and the ability to work flexibly can be particularly important for various groups of people, whether it's carers, whether it's older workers, whether it's people with disabilities, and we just can't afford not to use the talents of those people in our economy.
Sure, and I'm just being a little bit cynical about this for a minute. Of course, one of the things that flexible working can mean, if interpreted in the wrong way, is expecting employees to be on their BlackBerries or email or everything all the time. I mean, do we need any sort of fail-safes in there to stop abuse in that system?
Well, I think employees and employers alike need to be aware of some of the dangers and the risks. And while that is definitely one of the benefits for employers, that they can find that employees can be responsive even when they're not in the office, clearly there are limits to that. And in fact, you can end up with health problems if people are continually switched on to the office and not being able to get any downtime to recuperate and rejuvenate and get some space to have some good health. So I think it's just about managing those situations, and in many jobs there will be times that are more stressful and are more having greater requirements of employees than others, but I think a good dialogue between the employer and the employee is really key to be able to manage those issues.
That's great. Jo Swinson, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.